How's my mic? Is that all right?
And we're live. So we're going to get going here. Welcome, everyone. I'm Trina Limpert, and we have Tyler Small on the call as well today. And let me just move us over to our slides. We have a lot to go through today. So I'm going to turn over to Tyler to get us kicked off and start digging into AI for strategic planning, our next in this series.
Welcome back to our series on AI for strategic planning. This is the second webinar in the series, and today we'll be talking about how to use AI to set goals, targets, and metrics. And this webinar is hosted by myself, Tyler Small of Gen AI Black Belt, and Trina Limpert of Rise Next. And if you go to risenext.com, you can subscribe, and you'll see this deck in the next newsletter. Over to you, Trina.
All right. So we're excited to be talking about this next topic. In the years that I've run technology operations, done strategic planning, worked with organizations that have just been trying to put to their goals together, making sure they have the right goals. Some of these things can be optimized now and very efficient in your AI for strategic planning. So we are doing a full series. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And how do we tie all these things together, and how do we leverage AI to be able to move forward in all of these different areas? And so I'm going to talk through where we've been a little bit, and the sessions that we have been doing here. My slides will advance, and we'll start digging into the planning here. Looks like it's a little bit delayed on my side moving this forward. Hold on just a moment. So Tyler, while we're getting this kicked off, we're going to be talking about kind of what we've done. Do you want to give a short overview of our prior webinar and what we focused on during that session?
Yes. So last time we talked about the surprising and accelerating speed of AI, and we talked about the adoption rate, how you can see how fast ChatGPT was adopted compared to previous technologies. So if you think about fire, controlled fire as something that humans utilized as a technology they utilized for keeping warm and cooking food. It was 100,000 years that it took to reach 1 million users, and then skip ahead a while, and Amazon.com took 3 years to reach 100 million users. So that was pretty quick at that time. And then Facebook only 10 months, and ChatGPT only 5 days. So the speed of the technology is moving just faster and faster. And we talked about the cumulative build in infrastructure technologies like electricity and computers, the internet, social media, smartphones, and supercomputers that have become ubiquitous and are now the rocket fuel for AI that just rides on top of all of those advancements. We also talked about what's on the table now. The low-hanging fruit here is a 10% boost in productivity each year across your organizations. And many organizations have already achieved a boost of more than 25% in productivity. And we showed you how to build a custom GPT for your business using your company's data to increase productivity. We also showed you how to make, and all of that is in the deck and linked to slide 2 here, which you'll have access to afterwards. So go check it out afterwards if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, we'll be adding in the links to the various webinars as we go. And so follow us at Rise Next, subscribe to it, but also within the LinkedIn learnings and posts, you'll be able to see some of the detail in the background and kind of pull together this comprehensive overview that we're doing. So let me just move forward here into the next area, which I want to just very quickly, we have an opportunity to provide a bonus right now. We're working with Tyler to provide some free consults on AI strategy. So follow and get the QR code here and hit that, take advantage of it. We had last week some great conversations with some customers, and they're already signed up and starting to do upskill training for their workforces. So, take advantage of this. It's a huge opportunity to be able to get in and start really trying to digest all of the different things. I think we're all getting a little overwhelmed with the amount of different AI applications. So get that streamlined, get time with us. We can help in doing that. Stay tuned also to the end of this series. We're going to be talking about how you can get up to 50% of your corporate training costs covered. If you're in the state of Utah, they're offering some massive opportunities to get your training costs potentially covered. So stay and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So as we move into the next layer of this, I'm going to turn over to Tyler. We're going to talk about, gone in 60 seconds, like how do we do a quick overview so we can get everybody ramped up. If you didn't attend the prior webinar, what do we expect going forward?
And we have to apologize for the slide deck is moving slowly. So we've covered this, and we can go to the next. Skip ahead if you want.
All right, sounds good. It is moving extremely slowly. Love tech, right? We love tech.
We might be able to jump to the 4 key takeaways that we want.
Yeah, let's just get into it. All right.
So we want to everyone, if you think about what you'll be able to take away and use from this webinar, we want you to be able to take these 4 things. So if you just want to sink these into your mind, or if you're taking a few small notes, these 4 things. So first, defining your business goals. And as we've said before, in every step of strategic planning, as Trina and I have led many organizations through these processes, if you think about, okay, what are the steps? I'm going to go through these steps. Maybe I went through these steps last year and the 10 years before. Think about, we're going to go through this today, and you can use AI in every single one of these steps. So when you're defining your business goals and you're thinking about those SMART goals, then you can use AI to do that. And it knows what a SMART goal is. And so you can work with your goals and say, okay, these are the goals I'm thinking about. What other ones do you have? And you can, literally plug it in and get help. We'll talk about setting targets, those big overarching quantitative results. Third, we'll talk about the operations metrics. So when you drill down and you're thinking about, how can I measure this as I go? What are the different buckets and that are going to build up and create those big results, those targets? What are the operational metrics that when I'm down in the weeds from month to month and quarter to quarter that we'll need to pay attention to and strive for? And fourth is the communication. Once you've built this strategy, you're going to take it to your organization, you're going to put it into action, and you're going to tackle this by tracking with clear dashboards. And Trina has a really great hands-on example. She's going to get us into one of the LLMs, and she's going to show us exactly how you can actually get AI to build a dashboard for you.
Yeah, and I'm excited about this because as I've done this within organizations, it's one thing to get your ideas, put it together. I mean, that's a set of work in itself, but really the true success in any strategy is getting your teams aligned to where you're going and how to make sure that everybody is on the same page to be able to drive success. So I just want to make sure that as you're doing this, you're thinking about, this is a mindset shift that's happening, right? In how to leverage AI in each one of these areas to move things forward. And it's not about getting the right target and then you're successful. It's about getting the right target, the right operational mechanisms to be able to then support the actions that need to be taken within your business. This is also applicable. I don't want to just think about corporate strategy as this big one. You can look at it for your own personal goals, for your team goals, for a project's goals, right? And how do we make sure we're setting the right targets and operational metrics and communicating effectively? The use cases for this are pervasive across every role, every organization. How do I make sure that I'm communicating the right results and targets and things that we're going to be working on moving forward. Really keeping that focus, right? Which is critical within an organization.
And just to add to that, if you think about if you're in an organization where you don't necessarily lead the whole organization, like Trina said, or even if you do, you can take your performance review information from your last review period, and you can take that data and put it into ChatGPT and say, hey, what goals should I be thinking about that might align with the strategy that we're building here? So with all of that data, you can then come up with some very, very aligned and cohesive goals for yourself.
Absolutely. And I think that's what I've seen is it's moving your mind from one way of working into a new way of working. And AI is a tool, right? It can solve a lot of process things. It can take over tasks, really. It can do some of these things, but it takes an individual being very intentional in what am I trying to do? And now asking the question, how can I leverage AI? And once you become aware of these things, you start to just make them part of your day-to-day process. And so as we take that and aligning those individual goals with your strategic goals, it's really important to have really strong communications and how to connect, right? In the years that I've led global teams and done performance metrics and built this, the communication is where the breakdowns typically happen. And so how can you take the information that you have in an LLM and saying, how can I tailor this to my organizational, here's what we're working on, what our goals, help me explain the why behind the goal, not just the goal itself. And a leader's ability to make that translation to an individual, their purpose aligned to the strategic purpose and putting messaging together is challenging, right? To make sure that it's resonating within your teams and organizations. Or even if you're moving things up and saying, this is what I'm working on, here's how it aligns to my goals. If you flip it, you can use AI to help you put that messaging together. I think it's a good exercise in just processing and understanding what I'm working on and why. Right. That's the beauty of using a AI tool to do that. And then as we're going to be doing some sessions going forward, we don't have time to dig into it today, but analyzing your resource plans and who's on a project, as well as how their goals are going to align to that. That's kind of make that connection to the why. And then the last thing I'll say on this slide, it's really important to have the operational processes in place on a frequent basis to be able to support the delivery. So whether it's a monthly review and dashboards, which I'm going to talk about, are we on track to those targets and measurements that we're going to talk about creating in a moment? How can I monitor that and create dashboards to be able to track? And the use case that I'm going to show today is how can you use AI to help you get to the goals, targets, and measurements, as well as how do I use it to be able to help me easily create dashboards? One of the biggest challenges in creating these metrics is the ongoing measurement and showing it. How can we create tools that help us do that more effectively? So yeah, go ahead, Tyler.
I wanted to just add to what Trina is saying. I was so excited to talk about this. And when she brought up, we're preparing about dashboards, and just to speak to that, yesterday I was facilitating a training, business writing with AI and with the company, and we were talking about their sales ops organization, and they have this organization that it kind of includes customer service, and they have some issues going on there. And what we realized is that they didn't have a dashboard that was viewable to the members of the team. And that was just like you said, Trina, that it's sometimes a breakdown occurs when it's like time to do the work. It's time to communicate exactly where people are at on those dashboards and tracking those things from one day, 1 week, 1 month to the next. And so AI can help us figure out what are some options of how to break this down. What are some ways to communicate it? And we actually went through that yesterday with the leadership, and we were able to figure out, how to bring the right data to the team in ways that will help them, not in a like punishing way, but rather in an empowering way where they're able to just see their results and their error rates and their productivity, and be able to make changes to improve their number based on what they're seeing with their own eyes.
Yeah, it's those mitigation plans and catching it sooner. I think that's the biggest opportunity I see in leveraging AI is I can get the insights and visibility and communications quicker to make adjustments sooner as you're executing and have those crucial conversations.
Yeah. And by the way, if you use crucial conversations, like if you ask for a specific tip for that, like brand that structure of designing communications and training, like these LLMs have been trained on that, and so you can literally say, use this framework or use that framework,
right?
And it can typically bring it in. And if it fails at first, then all you have to do is find an article or give a quick summary, and then it'll build out that based on that structure. It's really fun. But to jump into this slide here, so there's this philosophical, I think, dilemma with AI where we can ask, like, well, are we supposed to kind of do a peanut butter spread approach or a laser approach? And the reason that I kind of have thought through this dilemma in the past is because typically with strategy, you want to have a laser approach. You want to prioritize, and you want to deploy resources in a very like strategic, prioritized manner, and not use a peanut butter approach. However, there's something different about this situation, and I think that the difference is that number one, your competitors are going to be using a peanut butter approach with AI, and the reason why that is because it's so easy and inexpensive to grab that 10% improvement off the table. It's darn near free. And if you think about that 10% improvement as 16 hours a month, and the fact that for $20 or $30 a month, you're paying for one of these tools that can get that, then you're talking about $2 an hour, that cost of extra time. And so at that low cost and as easy as it is to train people how to use these things for an abundance of different use cases, it just makes sense, I think, to use the peanut butter approach to grab those low-hanging fruits. And then after you've done that, then to use the laser approach and say, okay, we're going to, use this budget that we might have been hiring somebody for, and we're going to use part of that to train people and provide the tools so that we don't have to hire that person. But then we're also going to come up with these strategic priorities, that things that we couldn't have done before, or automations that we can now do that will allow us to spend more time on these higher priorities and do that strategic shuffling.
Yeah. And I love this approach. And I think this is where everyone is at, of how do I upskill my whole workforce so that everybody's enabled? It's going to bring more ideas to the table. So even if you think someone may not be able to or doesn't need to use AI, everyone can have ideas on how they could optimize once they see the power of how they can use it in their day-to-day job. What that feeds into is better ideation into your future strategies, because your teams are now saying, hey, I could do this, I could do that. And you're getting a more creative and innovative organization just by stopping and doing the upskill training that then allows you to do those deeper dives into maybe some of the more technical pieces. And that's what we've been really working on, is upskilling, standardizing everyone on just the core basics of how to optimize their day-to-day roles. Then you can go. I often use it when you're doing a large implementation or enterprise, you standardize, then you optimize, right? Get everybody kind of the same mindset of thinking in AI, and then you optimize and go to that deeper laser approach like you were talking, Tyler. I love this concept.
Yeah.
So let me move this forward.
We're going to get into the
love
meat.
this little delay here. There we go. Okay, let's really define what we're talking about. First of all, this is that standardized part as well on how to create goals, targets, and metrics and what they are. So with an AI approach, right, which is the focus for today. So if you have really smart goals, like we were saying, if you haven't used that term or not familiar, use some AI, pull it up, ask the question, right? We're going to be using it as well. Writing goals that really are going to be those smart, measurable, achievable results and timely. Like, how do you get that defined for your team? Making sure everybody has that sense of purpose behind the work they're doing. So everybody understands it resonates with them on when you're setting your goals of what you're going to be doing. This can be all the way from your top level goals, and then you cascade these down to your lower level sales, marketing, service across the board. There's going to be goals that support goals, right? And so getting an organization that's familiar and really running a performance measured organization is the goal here. But in writing those goals, are we taking into consideration all of our strategic priorities? Are we getting feedback and feeding that into our client data, our customer, our employee engagement data? How are we pulling that in so that those goals become more relatable?
Mm-hmm.
Then from there, you have targets, which is where do we want to end up? And those are more of those quantitative, specific milestones we're striving to. It gives you something to look forward to and say, this is what success will be if we hit this target.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're breaking down those large goals into these measurable, achievable, here's the exact target, right? Whether it's a sales revenue or number of customers acquired, those are targets. You're going to have set numbers on where you're going to go. But then how are we going to measure that? And this is where I see most organizations struggle of identifying what are the right metrics that you can track on a monthly, weekly basis to say it's the little things along the way that are giving us an indicator that we're on the right track to hitting those targets. So did I hit my sales revenue? Did I hit, a lot of times it's just number of leads generated, right? What are those metrics that you're driving? Now, the discussion here is how do I use AI for that? And so what I have done and run and support another organization called Tech Moms, I threw it into Claude. And I'm just going to go through this really quickly. There's another slide in here that'll go over it, but I'm going to just throw the question. What I did through this is I took all of our annual report data. So everything that I had for our organization and had done our annual surveys, our post-cohort completion surveys, all that data I loaded in as a file into Claude. You can do this in GPT. You can do this in there's a lot of these, pick the one that you feel like is most effective for your organization. You can kind of test them out and use those.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get it in there and it has your data, it becomes extremely valuable in being able to have a discussion within your organization of what are the goals and targets. Maybe we've been measuring the wrong thing. So just from creativity and innovation of like, maybe we weren't getting the right things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll talk about that a little bit more. But when I talk about AI tools that you can leverage, there's a lot out there. And I think this is where individuals get really overwhelmed, right? Because you and I have this conversation all the time, Tyler. Like, what is the right tool for X, right? And every month it's changing, every week, every day. I mean, some days I'm like, did 3 new things just come out? It's hard to stay on it, but there's existing tools already that you might be using in your workforce. I'm just going to call out one here, Monday.com, project management tool, right? This one is one where it might convert plain text language. If I'm creating a new project and I want to put ideas into a structured task, then you can use AI to be able to say, hey, I want to create a project plan. This is one that I've done actually for a Salesforce migration that I want to set targets and milestones to have our core data migrated by December 31st. I want to have this, right? You kind of do it in a natural language, but then it converts it into an actual project. And you can download that project and add your targets and just start working so much faster than having to create that from scratch.
If you don't have a project management tool, I also highly recommend Monday.com. It's very simple. It's plugged with full of AI, and it also has templates. So there's a lot of automation you can do with it. Sort of if this then that sort of triggers, and then but if you don't and you're using some other tool and you're happy with it, then I highly recommend looking and figuring out which of the tools that you're using now have those AI components. So like
Absolutely.
if you're in the Microsoft suite, look at Copilot. If you're in the Google Workspaces suite, then look at all the Gemini features that are in there. If you're in Slack, there's AI for Slack now. It's great. I just put a YouTube video on my channel about that. If you're in Salesforce, there's Einstein, and it's pricey, but if you figure out maybe you're not going to buy it for everybody all at once, but if you figure out like this person or this group of people, they're power users, and if we do a pilot with them first, then have one person or 10 people, and you can get that going and have them try it out and see if it's worth it. And then if it's not worth it in the long run, then pull it off. But if they are finding a lot of use, then you can use those pilot folks to then help train the rest of the organization.
Absolutely. I think that's the key here is, depending on your organization, what tools you already have, the budgets you have available, right? I know that even in running a nonprofit, we have to be very specific on our costs. So I'll use some like a ChatGPT, and then I'll just leverage that and then pull it into different tools. So on this idea of using, like I was saying, Claude for evaluating what our current annual survey was, taking feedback that we've had from different cohorts, taking in our prior goals and targets that we had before. What I was able to do within just getting an idea of some of those students served, what did we serve before, what should we be serving, and having these on an operational dashboard is something that we've been doing and starting to integrate more into sharing that across our teams. And I think this is really powerful. We've as we've started up, we're 5 years old in that organization.
Congratulations.
Oh, sorry, was that Tyler?
I said congratulations.
Thank you. It's been growing quickly, right? Like it's amazing, but it's kind of moving from that teenage stage to more mature phase, I would say. And we are wanting to make sure that we're really targeting some of these things and really fast growth, which is wonderful. But how do we become, as we grow, we've now got 22 people on staff this fall. As we're growing and scaling, what we realize is that we need to get a lot better at sharing our strategic goals, targets, and metrics. And how do we do that effectively? And so one of the ideas here is, you can see in this kind of slide that I have up, I just uploaded our prior annual reports, our prior metrics, what we were doing before, then letting it give me ideas and suggestions on what are our key strengths, what are some growth trends that are happening from a research perspective, what are some recommendations I can take into 2025? And like, just as I did this, it just changed. Like, yeah, there's things that are fundamental, but did we think about this before? Mm-hmm. And how do I communicate that out to our team? So as we did that and started, one of the things is, how do I create these dashboards, right? How do I make sure that everybody's on the same page and can view that information? So we use Gamma, and I just actually did this morning. So that's how fast some of this can happen. I took that information from Claude and put it into Gamma and said, create me a dashboard. And it went through and creates your icons, creates all of your information, and gives you an idea of a starting place. And then this is shareable with your whole organization. What we're doing, what's the mission, what's our growth, where have we been, right? It's incredible, like incredibly powerful to be able to just see what we've done and be able to communicate that on an ongoing basis. And then you pair that in with your operational meetings that you already have and look at that and say, are we on target as you go forward?
This is incredible.
It is. Can we just take a pause moment? Like how awesome this is for someone that's, anyone trying to become more effective. And I think we've all felt that overwhelm feeling of like, there's so much, but this really does free up that time to, instead of spending time in creating the PowerPoint and creating the dashboard and the operational things, we can really focus on the delivery. And I was doing a presentation on Friday at the University of Utah and this idea. I was working with some executive MBA students on, and the number one thing that came up was, well, there's a fear that AI is going to take my job. And I think the mindset shift is it's not AI that's going to take your job. It's the person that knows how to use AI that's going to take your job. And really leaning in and creating organizations that know how to use it. And then the second fear that comes up is, well, if I start using this, the organization is going to be put at risk, right? Like data privacy things, all of these things need to be addressed. We have consultants that help with data privacy. And as you're creating some of these, but it's better off to upskill your workforce on how to do it right than not train them at all. Because what's going to happen is they're going to start using it anyway. And if you have not trained them on the right uses and how to use AI in for privacy and some of these things and making sure you have the right tools, they're going to be doing it anyway. And you're going to be more exposed to risk if you're not training your teams on this. Yeah. So it is powerful. It can create, 10% easily achievable, right? It's the doing it the right way and making sure everybody is up to speed from an upskilling perspective.
Absolutely. And even some of these simple things, like I know I've worked with several organizations on their strategic planning and also on their performance goals for individuals. And, whichever one it is, asking leaders and employees to come up with a goal is sometimes really difficult to get them to state it in terms of a SMART goal, in terms of a measurable metric. And so, that's just a really easy thing that people can do, like plug it in. And it's, if you're trying to figure out use cases where you're like, oh, well, I work for this huge company and, I don't want to leak our core strategy or whatever, like, there's still a lot of things that you can do. For example, convert this into a SMART goal, like give me 10 ideas, and it'll take your little goal there that's like maybe sort of specific, but it'll make it a lot more specific. It'll make it a lot more relevant. You can say, ask me 10 questions, one at a time that I can respond to in order to help me build this into, a more clean, measurable thing. And it'll help you do that. It'll walk you through. In the organization I was coaching yesterday, it can also be helpful to use your values, organizational values. And so, in a lot of communications I've done in the past, we said, okay, well, how can we communicate this in a way that appeals to the organization? And it was to use the organizational values. So what we did yesterday is we quickly built an organizational custom GPT, and we threw in their employee handbook and their benefits guide and a few other things to make it just like they could ask it anything. And then we would do things like, hey, this is the communication that we need to give. Now, align this with the values and rewrite it. And then it came out and it's like, well, because we care about this value, we need to do this. And because we care about this value, we need to do this. And living up to an organization's values, like, is one of the key things I think that intrinsically motivates employees. So aligning your strategy with your values, like, that's just another one of the small things that AI can do to help you as you communicate all of these goals, metrics, and targets.
Absolutely. And I think that it's just getting started and starting to take the small things to the big things, right? Like you were saying, the chicken and egg approach. And so with this visualization, what we're saying here is starting at the top, making sure you have your AI initiatives. There's two approaches here I want to kind of fit in for AI. One is creating your overall organizational goals and strategic plan, but you also have like an AI strategy now that should be created. And so you're kind of hitting, this approach works for both of these things. Making sure you have a strategic alignment, your organizational initiatives as well as your AI initiatives are aligning with your overall business goals. But one of the biggest things that I see is, yes, we want to use AI, not understanding you've got to have your data prepared to be able to use it most effectively. And so there might be work that's needed to prepare, clean, provide data resources. If you're missing something, this was not just AI, right? Like I've seen this across the board on any enterprise deployment I've done, is that your data and your output is only as good as the data you're putting in. So you want to make sure that you've got a good data plan for preparation, and can you source some of these data sources to be able to get a more valuable output from your AI. And then, like we were saying before, what are the tools you have available today that you can leverage, and what may you want to start using in the future, then moving into implementation. So,
yeah.
And then this last one, I'm just going to scroll down. It's not a one and done. I think that's the one thing I want to make sure is very clear. You don't just put this in and then walk away. This is a complete change management mindset shift that's happening, and you have to be completely aware and intentional of what you're doing and monitoring and making sure that you're making adjustments as you go, whether it's from a people or from an AI perspective. Some of the training that we've been doing and I've been speaking on quite a bit is AI plus EI. It takes both people and tools, right, to make this effective.
The emotional intelligence. Yeah, just to add to that, when you think about measuring model performance, there's lots of different ways to do that. But if you are using tools like Copilot, if you are using tools like ChatGPT Enterprise, you can look at that dashboard and you can draw insights from that. Or if you're using, if you build a tool and it has used the API interface, you can then measure, and you can build. In fact, you can use AI to measure AI, and you can do audits of the logs that occur within those tools, so that let's say you have a larger tool that you've built, and you have a log from all the uses and then you can see, what are people using it for? Are people using it for, like, developing their business cases? What are the topics? You can do a lot of inquiry there, and create automated reporting to identify what are the themes that people are, where are people finding value in this, and then identifying holes and gaps, and those may or may not align with the organizational strategic gaps that you see. Chances are that if people aren't using AI to serve certain problems, then those problems may not be being solved as well. Or maybe that the amount of time that's going into solving those problems, if people aren't using AI to do the data analysis and the communications and the ideation, like, there's a good chance that those things can be done in much, much less time.
Right. Or not at all. I think that came up with client we were working with this last week, and it wasn't just how do we just optimize and remove productivity, but as you start to evaluate, there may be things that you shouldn't be doing at all, or can hand off, right? And so that step back and just look at what we do every day. It's a good exercise, AI or not, right? Sometimes we get caught in the we do it because that's what we've always done approach. And so just being able to take the time and set aside and say, oh, we're doing this, and then asking why, and having those conversations are always good to get out of the day-to-day weeds of, I just do this because I need to do it, and take the time out to be able to really reevaluate what we're doing and why we're doing it. Does it align to our goals? Is it going to hit that target? Am I measuring the right things? And leveraging AI to have those conversations and really reevaluate in an effective way.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting close towards the end of the time, and we're targeting a little bit shorter here. But I did want to call back out. We said at the end of this, we were going to talk about this opportunity. We've got upskill training offerings, both from a workshop delivery, training delivery, assessment and auditing of your current process flows, as well as, like I mentioned before, if you're in the state of Utah, we can help in actually getting those costs potentially reimbursed up to 50%. There's a little bit of a time where, especially where we're getting to the end of the year, where funding may be running out. So you want to get in as soon as you can, and be able to also take advantage of time with Tyler. I mean, that's a huge free 45-minute initial consent just to have the conversations. It looks like we have a question in LinkedIn on share this QR code. Yes, I will show this outside of the meeting. We'll also publish this webinar, and we'll make sure that that goes out in any of our newsletters that we're putting out. This is a great opportunity. I appreciate Tyler offering his time this next month as we, look to help individuals. This time of year is such a great time to get in and start doing this and figuring out, well, if we can't do it before the end of the year, we've got the holidays coming up. We understand that. How do we get this in and make this part of our organizational shift and planning for this coming year? So great timing to get in and get time with Tyler and look at upskilling your teams right now. It's a wonderful time to be doing that. So
I'm eager.
Yeah, we're excited to be working with everyone. I know that even as Tyler and I met and started working with each other this last few months, just the opportunities that we see that are coming are immense. And we want to be able to help with that process for everyone, really help rise you up to the next level, right? That's the Rise Next motto here. And so make sure that you're getting time with us, get that initial consult with us, and we can help and see where the opportunities are for your organization. So with that, let me see if there's any other comments. I'm not seeing anything else coming in at this time. Tyler, any kind of final wrap-up thoughts from your side?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is I've been speaking with organizations, and I consult with Utah Valley University, helping them design their AI programs. We're working on their masters in AI right now. And I think one of the big kind of terms that's emerging is AI transformation. One of the first buzzwords we heard was generative AI, and that's still very much a thing. But from an organizational perspective, if you're thinking about your core business strategy, and you're working through this with us in this webinar series, think about this concept of an AI transformation as something that either will happen to you, or you'll be proactive and take the initiative and really do it in a systematic, structured way. And so that's one of the things that I'd like to help you discuss. If you want to take this time with me to click the link and schedule some time, and that AI transformation is a thing that you can proactively plan and budget for. And we'll have one of these webinars on budgeting, and to make sure that you're taking advantage of these amazing tools as inexpensive as they are and as easy as they are to pick up and consume and utilize, in a way that best fits your business, your culture, like your timeline, and to be able to prioritize it so that you don't kind of get caught in the middle, like, oh, our competitors are all using these things. Now we're behind and we're going to have to try and catch up. Like that's going to be a really tough game. So it's much better to just keep ahead of the 8 ball and dive in with a very strategic plan.
Yeah. And there was a comment in here. Thank you, Dave, for this. Taking away that I just need to start, even if small. I love that. And yes, even if you're a solopreneur, right? We've been talking kind of enterprise. We've been talking large scale. We've been talking mid-size. This applies regardless of industry, regardless of business size, even solopreneurs. I've worked with speakers, authors. How do they leverage? Like, it's applicable for everyone. I think that's what's exciting about what we're doing, and just helping enable everyone as they go through that process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I will be posting out the link to the webinar. It will come out as well on LinkedIn or whatever channel you're joining in on today. As well as Tyler mentioned, next week, same time, same place, we're going to be doing our next one on budgeting and finances. I'm excited for this one, even for myself. Every time we do these, I learn something new as well. So it's fun to put this hyper focus on it. One last thing that I would mention, if you're in Utah, we are excited to actually be running some new AI Masters events. December 5th, mark your calendars. We are going to be doing an amazing panel on and bring everybody together in person, be able to connect, be able to have these discussions and connect with the Masters live. So that'll be coming up December 5th. It'll be a noon lunch and learn networking type of event. So stay tuned for that. I'll be posting more on that. Like I said, just to wrap things up, join our newsletter. We've got a lot of amazing things coming up for this community, and grateful that you were able to join us today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.